this week for both the Cubs and White Sox. We'll discuss expectations for both clubs. Plus, the Blackhawks are still trying to squeak into the playoffs, and we're in the thick of the madness. The close calls, the blowouts, the superstars. We're going to talk about it all tonight on The Final Word. What's going on, everyone? I am Shae Peppler. I'm joined by Anthony Herron and Jason Goff. Guys, how are your brackets?
I didn't fill one out. I haven't done that in like 5-6 years. So I did it for the show, but I kept it on my computer screen, so I never hit submit. But I don't fill out brackets. I get to just watch with the freedom of not having to worry about my bad picks.
No stress. That's a good idea.
Brackets since it was a 64-team field. That was the last time I officially filled out a real bracket. It's been a minute for me.
I would fill out 5 if I could.
I was right on every pick, by the way. Even though I didn't fill out a bracket, I haven't been wrong yet.
Okay, right. Yeah, you haven't been wrong yet. If you don't click submit, you're not allowed to say it.
I don't talk about it. I just watch.
Yeah,
I just watch.
Yeah, you just be about it. That's okay. All right, for me at least, what a special time of year. You hope to be on your couch or somewhere with many televisions, uninterrupted, watching hours and hours of hoops. Am I right? We're going to go around the brackets, or at least the games, and pick apart today's games. Let's start in the South region, where Iowa and Tennessee reminded us that literally anything can happen in March.
Really well.
Seriously. Great game between the Hawkeyes and the Volunteers. Rocky Top exploded in the first half, getting out to a 25-point lead. But the Hawkeyes, I don't know how, but they somehow reeled themselves back in the second half. Tied at 71 inside the 10 seconds on the clock here. Jordan Bone's three-pointer for the win. It's no good. There it is. Headed to overtime. Grant Williams had 6 points in the extra session. Jumper put the Volunteers up by 7. They win 83-77. They'll face Purdue in the Sweet 16. First of all, the fact that it could have been another Big Ten rematch in Hawkeyes and Purdue, I think that's a problem. We can talk about that later. Guys, how good is this Tennessee team? As a 2 seed, you thought that they maybe could make it all the way to the Final Four. They were exposed a little bit in this game. How good do you think the Volunteers are?
I think they're very good. They're physically, they can outmatch anybody with their front line, Admiral Schofield and Grant Williams. And Jordan Bone throughout the season has gotten better. And when we talk about lead guard play and you talk about a couple of professional players on your team, that's the formula for a tournament success. Their loss in the SEC championship game was because Auburn shot their lights out. But the Tennessee Volunteers, for the most part this season, has been one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the nation.
This is a team that a lot of folks were talking about as a 1 seed, even with the SEC championship game loss. I mean, Tennessee's been a squad throughout the year that's played a high brand of basketball, and we saw the selflessness on display in the game for them today, too. There's a lot of teams who play a selfless brand of basketball and they advance in the tournament. Saw Schofield, once he got in foul trouble and he was in overtime and he was on the bench, say, you know what? Leave him in there. Leave his backup. Leave him in the game, because I don't feel like right now my 4th foul, if I pick up the 5th foul, whatever, they're rolling without me, and that's the type of selfless ball that they played.
Speaking of that, do you think that was a good decision to sit Schofield that late in the game for the entire overtime?
Because they were rolling, and it happened pretty quickly. You know, Iowa had all the momentum going into overtime, and then Tennessee pretty much took over right off the bat once it got to extras. And so at that point, why make a switch?
I've seen points in this season where Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield have kind of battled for the blocks offensively. So I think Rick understood that, okay, Grant's going to get it going here. Admiral Schofield has kind of got it out the rhythm of the game. And like you said, when your backup's in there, letting them cook, especially defensively, let them cook. I mean, that's why you got 7, 8 guys you can go to.
Yeah, I actually thought they played unbelievable down the stretch, but man, their defense looked awful for stretches of that game.
Iowa made shots all season long, and they were down. It was getting ready to be the greatest comeback in tournament history. And when they got to the overtime, I'm like, all right, well, you might be tuckered out a little bit, and it looked like that in the overtime.
I gotta admit, it was kind of funny to hear Chris Webber at the end of regulation. Oh, he should have taken a timeout.
Yeah,
It immediately popped in my head.
Everyone thought the same.
Like, you're right, but it's Chris Webber saying it, so it just sounded odd.
All right, we got to go to the Midwest region here. For 9, Washington against number 1 seeded North Carolina. The Tar Heels literally never trailed in this one. Kobe White went 4 for 7 from 3-point range. UNC led by 8 points at the break and coasted.
Oh, step back.
81-59 win. The Tar Heels are headed to their 4th Sweet 16 in the last 5 years. Tar Heels never took their foot off the gas in this one, to take a line from good old Stacey King. Too big, too strong, too fast in this one from start to finish. They'll face Auburn next, who was very impressive against Kansas. Can the Tar Heels put an end to Auburn's momentum that's been carried over from the SEC?
Yeah, I definitely think they can. I mean, overall, when you look at the way North Carolina plays, when they shoot like they did today, it's going to be hard for anyone in the country to beat them. You know, Duke, Gonzaga, anyone when North Carolina shoots like that. Now, they're a little bit streaky with their shooting. You know, they're certainly not as streaky as Duke, who suddenly Duke can shoot the three in the tournament. But UNC throughout the season, when they've shot that well, they've played defense, they've got the inside-out game going. I don't see it, whether Auburn or anyone else, I don't see anyone who plays the game as well-rounded in that sort of manner as UNC does. So I think when they shoot like that, they're the best team in the country.
I think their perimeter defense is going to be key, Cam Johnson and Kobe White. But this is the thing. I think Gonzaga and UNC are the two most well-rounded teams, as Anthony intimated. That now Duke has the star power, and there's some other teams that got the look-at-me guys in terms of the star potential. But when you talk about 1 through 9, 1 through 10, I think Gonzaga and UNC are right there. And North Carolina, I mean, they're bred for this kind of, you go there to play in these kind of games. So experience-wise, Kobe White is outstanding, Cam Johnson outstanding. Nasir Little is going to be a lottery pick, and he's coming off the bench for them. So this is a very talented team, and I think Roy's going to have a nice little run.
I complained about seeing interleague play, essentially in the Big Ten, but are we maybe setting ourselves up for another Duke-Carolina game in this tournament?
Yeah. For the, what, 4th time?
I know.
Would be this
I don't
year?
know. But I don't seem to feel as bad about that.
You should.
You should. Had 2 of those games without Zion. I think that's a big part of that. Zion Williamson didn't play in 2 of the games. The one game he did play in, Duke was able to come out with the victory. So it feels like this is the matchup that folks are hoping they'd see in the regular season if this collision course continues for Tobacco
Give me the matchups I want too, right? I mean, like if this was happening during the season, I'd be like, all right, I'm watching it. And now that it's happening with so much on the line, okay, I'm watching it again. Like I've never been a big Cinderella guy. Like, all right, that's fun. Enjoy your first weekend and get out of my tournament so I can start watching the kids that go to big schools.
Yeah, right. It's like the college
Shout out to Loyola, though.
It's like the college football playoff, though. I'm fine watching Alabama and Georgia. That's fine with me.
I'm cool with it.
All right, let's keep going. Nail-biter in the East region. Top-seeded Duke and number 9 UCF. Knights up by 3 with less than 20 seconds left, which is unbelievable in itself. Zion Williamson's drive. He's fouled by Taco Fall. Somehow makes the shot. Fall, 7'6", by the way. He fouls out. So Zion at the line for the tie. Misses. R.J. Barrett there for the putback.
Nice push.
Top 2 picks in the draft.
Duke takes the lead. One more chance by UCF. B.J. Taylor gets the ball at the top of the key, takes it to the basket, misses the layup. Dawkins is there for the tip. Ball stays out. What a finish. The Blue Devils survive and advance to the Sweet 16, 77-66, the final. So Duke, back to this interleague play, will face Virginia Tech in the Sweet 16. Virginia Tech did beat Duke earlier this season, but that was without Zion Williamson. So how different will this matchup be, Anthony?
When Duke can defend in the manner that, Zion adds energy to what they do offensively, and that's great, but he adds energy to what they do defensively as well. He contests so many shots. He runs up and down the court, inside the paint and out. So for me, Duke shooting the ball at over 40% from 3, that's just icing on the cake. I have a hard time seeing that continuing as they get into the Sweet 16 just because we haven't seen it from them throughout the season. If it does, then you see a Final Four team and potential national championship game type of squad. I'm not really counting on the shooting continuing for Duke, but the way they defend with Zion on the court, that to me is what separates Duke from most of the other teams in the country.
Do you think this was a Dawkins factor, though, a little bit?
Well, listen, Aubrey Dawkins is on the floor. Johnny Dawkins is on the bench. When you got a 7'6" guy in your middle, that changes everything, especially for a team that likes to play in the paint the way Duke does. But I'll just say this. If they win or if they don't win, there are certain players that I have fallen in love with in the course of my sporting life, that whether it be Dominique Wilkins, covering Carmelo Anthony when he went on his Final Four run, Dwayne Wade, who's getting ready to say goodbye to the NBA and to basketball forever. Zion Williamson 2 years ago, when I was hosting at the Score, I was telling people, like, this is getting ready to be a thing, and you better be prepared for it. And I don't even think I got close to how much of a thing it is. And I'm going to tell you now, if Kobe or if LeBron went to college, I think this is what it would have felt like and looked like. Because we're witnessing something special, and I know Twitter and social media and all those things kind of damp down our expectations and try to say, slow your roll. Don't slow your roll on this. Enjoy every moment of him before he's a professional. I am having a ball. I have never rooted for Duke in my life. I know brothers who are like me who are sitting there screaming, "Go Duke, go!" It is a cultural phenomenon that we're taking part in right now, and I'm enjoying every drop of it.
Quick question: do you still think, with what we saw from Ja Morant, what I said about them being the top 2 picks in the draft, Barrett, Williamson, do you think that's still the case?
I think Zion is the #1 pick, and I think Phoenix or whoever is going to be very happy that they get the #2 pick, because that pressure will will be off of them. But Zion, if you don't pick Zion and Zion ends up being Charles Barkley 2.0, then you're going to have some issues.
Right. This is the most liked Duke team, I think, in history because of him.
Since they've been good, at least. I mean, there was Duke teams in the 80s that people probably liked.
Right. Way back when. Right. All right, let's go to the West region. 6-seeded Buffalo and 3-seeded Texas Tech. The Red Raiders led by 8 at the break and just came out hot starting in the second half on an 18-3 run. Texas Tech, 5 players in double figures. They beat the Bulls, and they beat them easily, 78-58.
Everybody beats the Bulls, though.
Yeah, that's I see what you did there. Yeah. So Texas Tech will then see Michigan, guys. Two teams, stifling defenses. I know you both cover Big Ten basketball, so which defense do you give the edge to in this one?
Listen, the Michigan defense is terrific, but Jarrett Culver is a different kind of animal. That dude is a professional player. So Charles Matthews and Isaiah Livers. That's his name on the show.
I'm like, what just happened?
That's his thing. I gotta team up. That's my co-host right there. But Isaiah Livers and all these perimeter players are gonna have to shut down a guy who can get 25 at any point in time. I'm not as familiar with the Texas Tech Red Raiders defensively because I've only watched them 2 or 3 times. I just know what they have offensively, and that's the problem for Michigan. Michigan, they'd like to play in the 60s, and if they play in the 70s, they're going to win. If they can get to that 72, 73-point mark, I think Michigan wins, but it's going to be tough to hold down Culver.
That's the issue because we've seen time and time again this season where Michigan, when they've had to play in the 70s, it hasn't gone so well for them. It's been rare that folks have gotten into the 70s, even into the 80s. I think only twice this season an opponent has gotten 80 points or more on Michigan, but Texas Tech can do both. They're a stellar defense. They can really hurt you offensively as well. For Michigan, they started to shoot the 3-ball more effectively. Again, kind of like I'm saying with Duke, I'm not sure I'm counting on that as they get deeper and deeper into the tournament, but at least there's been a longer strain of time here for the Wolverines where we've watched them at least attempt to shoot the 3 with their center, John Teske. Even Charles Matthews, who just returned from injury, he's starting to shoot the 3-ball. He hit a couple for them this weekend. So for Michigan, if they can score like that, then it's great. I'm just not confident they can do it. And I don't see the depth and the well-rounded nature of Michigan's defense because John Beilein doesn't go as deep in his bench as some of these other teams.
Wait a minute, who are you rooting for? Because you're an Indiana girl, and Texas Tech's got a certain vibe because of Bobby Knight, and Michigan is Michigan. So.
And Big Ten, I'm so far removed from the alliances in this tournament because, I mean, Indiana has disappointed me so much.
NIT?
I mean, woo, NIT,
NIT.
I'm so far removed, but I actually like Texas Tech in this matchup. I think their defense is different. It's a different kind of defense.
I'm with you.
All right, lots more to get to in this edition of The Final Word. With the season starting on Thursday, the Cubs hit an offensive explosion against the Padres today. Highlights are next, and the Sox showed off some power of their own against the Indians. We'll compare what we think their win totals will be for this upcoming regular season. That's all after the break. All right, tonight's spring training report here on The Final Word is brought to you by the Illinois Lottery. Let's go to Peoria, Arizona.
Oh, I was going to say.
Not Illinois.
Just was there.
Cubs and Padres. Northsiders exploded in the top of the first, already up 2-0. Victor Caratini doubles to left. David Bodie and Addison Russell come in to score. That makes it 4-0. 2 batters later, Phillip Evans. He's going to homer too. Why not? That's a 2-run shot.
Yeah, that Phil Evans. Yeah.
Count on him.
Yeah.
Cubs scored 6 in the first, 5 in the fourth, 7 in the fifth. In all, if you guys added that up at home, tallied 24 runs off 27 hits. They win 24-6.
Everybody's saying, save those for the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. Please, save those 24 runs. All right, let's go White Sox. They hosted the Indians at Camelback Ranch. Up 1-0 in the third. That guy who just got paid, Eloy Jimenez. Singles to center. Yohan Moncada comes in to score. That makes it 2-0. 6th inning here. Adam Engel, 1-1 pitch. That one is out of here. That's his third of the spring. White Sox win 7-3. 2 winners today out in Arizona.
Let's go.
It begins.
Eloy's boys.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. And that might answer my next question. This is our last show before opening day on Thursday. So here's today's Save Big Money at Menards season projections for the Cubs and Sox. There are all our names up there, guys. We have the Cubs getting over 90 wins. That's across the board. I know. Well, okay. The Sox win total, though, is where we see a little bit of a difference of opinion.
Anthony Hayden.
So, should we go to the hater first?
Anthony Hayden.
We'll go to the hater first. Anthony, explain yourself.
What's wrong with that man? 72 wins?
I'm trying to operate in reality.
Are they going to field a team?
I don't know if pom-poms are really a thing in baseball, but you to 82 and 77 wins? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Goff, you almost started hard.
I did.
But let's go reality. Let's go reality. The pitching staff is already injured before the season has even begun. We really can't expect any depth from the starters. We really know already that there's really no relief pitching on the way either. So overall, if the bats do what they have the potential to do, great. The Sox might score some runs this year. They're not really going to stop anybody else from scoring any runs. So to think they're going to cross the 75, 80 win plateau, with that Snuffleupagus discussion we were just having in break.
You had to be chilling with Snuffy if that's the case.
I think that's what you and Shae must be on right now.
Don't let your kids watch Snuffleupagus, by the way. Oh,
took a weird turn. Bring it back around, though. Jason, explain yourself, please.
You know why? You know why? Because Jose Abreu is going to have a fine season. Eloy Jimenez, he does have a fine season. He just doesn't have anybody around him. Now he's got Eloy and the rest of Eloy's boys. Eloy Jimenez is going to hit 32 home runs this year.
Okay,
that man has elite raw power. I'm not done yet, Peppler.
All right.
Lucas Giolito, in no way can he be the second worst pitcher in Major League Baseball like he was last year.
So what if he's the third worst?
And Carlos Rodon looks svelte. He is ready to pitch his butt off. And whatever butt he's got left, what else we got in there? Carson Fulmer's going to the bullpen. Everything's going to be fine with him. Tricky Ricky Renteria has these boys on the cusp of going 500 this year.
So you're anticipating Elo's WAR is going to be like 20, like plus 20 is going to be Elo's WAR.
Moncada is not going to strike out 217 times this year. Give me something else.
Okay.
Omar Narvaez, he couldn't frame a picture last year. Nevertheless, a pitch. I think his subtraction is great for the Sox. Sox are going to win 77 ball games, right around that 80 mark. The division is the worst in baseball. So, White Sox fans, I've been saying 2020. It's 2019.
Okay, I'm not going to go with that.
One more year.
You did say 82.
I gave him a lot of wins. I did.
Yes, you did.
Shae,
don't let him hate on your shot.
I was feeling very optimistic for these White Sox coming into work today. I did give them a lot of wins, okay? I don't know if I'm going to say 2019 is their year. I'm not going to go that far.
I said 2020.
No, you
said, but you got to get it ramped up to 2019.
Yeah. But I do think they're going to be better than they were last year. I just believe in improvement, okay? Speaking of the worst division in baseball, the best division in baseball is probably the division the Cubs are playing in. They made minimal moves this season. We all have them winning over 90 games. So why?
Because they were already good last year, and even with the inconsistencies we saw from the Cubs last season, they still had one of the best records in the National League. They still had the best run differential, one of the best run differentials throughout most of the season in all of baseball. So I don't see any reason to expect, just because they didn't add any major pieces in the offseason, that they'll regress. Health should have them taking a step forward. That may not necessarily mean they have more wins than last year. I had them at 92. I think they will be a better and more consistent baseball team, while still, because of the depth of this division, not necessarily crossing that 95-win plateau.
Yeah, they win 90 games, but I don't think they win the division.
Yeah, I'll agree with all of that. Okay, lots more to get to on this edition of The Final Word. The Blackhawks might need to win out to get some help to make the playoffs. Highlights against the Avs are just 2 minutes away. Stick around. If you're a fan of The Final Word or any of our Bears shows, you need to be following us on Twitter. Exactly. Check us out at Fox Kickoff. You can follow me. I'm at Shae Peppler. Jason is at Jason1Goff. And Anthony over here is at Big Ant Herron. So make sure you hit a little follow on the birdie for all of us.
Yep.
Let's talk hockey. Blackhawks entered tonight's game with the Avalanche 6 points out of the last wild card spot. Scoreless in the second period here. The Avs had 5-on-3, and you know what that spells? Trouble. Alexander Kerfoot scores on the one-timer there. Avs take the 1-0 lead. Hawks get him back in the third on the power play here. Brent Seabrook shoots, and Artem Anisimov deflects it in for the equalizer. The game then went into overtime. Not necessarily a good thing, though. Duncan Keith takes it himself, scores. Again. Grubauer, yeah. Hawks get 2 points. Colorado gets a point, too, though. So the Hawks are now 5 points out of that last playoff spot with a 2-1 win. Corey Crawford, guys, started his first back-to-back since November of 2017, which feels like so long ago. So I just said it. The Hawks are 5 points out. Can they still make the playoffs?
They can still make it. They got to play their best hockey down the stretch here. Corey Crawford has been Corey Crawford-like, and that's what you hope from him with all the injuries and the upper body stuff and the concussions, everything that's happened. I mean, Patrick Kane has had a fantastic season. We've seen a rejuvenation of sorts in Jonathan Taves after the new diet and all the other things were made fun of. But defensively, we've talked about it all season long. There's 1 or 2 mistakes a game that you just scratch your head about defensively, and you wonder how much gas does Duncan Keith have and Brent Seabrook have. Like they've been going through these playoff runs year after year after year. It's got to mount up at some point. These last few games, it'll be exciting to watch, though, because they definitely have put a jolt back in the United Center because the Bulls can't do it.
Yeah, that's true. But it's been the team defense. I mean, that has been the story for me. What do you think?
The defense and special teams have both improved under Jeremy Colleton. And so when you move on from Coach Q and you're trying to figure out whether this new guy, this young guy, is going to be the answer for the Hawks moving forward, I think we've seen enough tangible evidence this season that, yes, it appears he will be. And he continues to adjust and shift the lineups. You know, whether we see Kane and Taves on the ice together at different stretches, sometimes that lineup works. Sometimes he switches them to the opposing lines, and it feels like when he makes these moves, it at least adds and infuses a bit of juice into what they're doing offensively and defensively for a certain stretch. So overall, I've been impressed with him. Whether they make the playoffs or not, I feel like it's a good future for now the new leader of the Blackhawks.
Yeah, it definitely has been a surge these last couple of months of the season, which they definitely needed. All right, coming up after another break, we'll talk Bulls and also some football. Rob Gronkowski made a big announcement today. We are back in 2 minutes to talk about it.
It ain't so, Gronk.
All right, let's talk some Bulls. Chandler Hutchinson and Wendell Carter both out for the remainder of the season, as that was just announced over the weekend. Zach LaVine has been a late scratch the last couple of games. So, guys, do you think he sits the remainder of the season?
Yeah, he should, just to secure the top 4, maybe even try to work into the top 3. May as well sit LaVine, find a reason to sit Markkanen if you need to also. You know, we know where this season is at this point. We know what the goals are for the offseason, and to be as high as in the draft as possible is important. I think we've seen enough improvement from Zach LaVine, I guess, where I can say I don't need to see any more of him this particular season. There seems to be a bond that started to form here between him and Jim Boylen, and I think will be important moving forward if Boylen's going to continue to be the coach. So overall, sure, sit him down.
Yeah, I'm with it. Yeah, right. I'm with it. Sit him down. You don't need to prove anything at this point. You know that Chris Dunn is probably not going to be your point guard going into it, so it's not like you have to play him with
Ja Morant.
Yeah. I mean, Patrick Beverly, Ricky Rubio, I know they love those 2 guys. Darren Collison is also on their radar as well. And Ja Morant, of course. But, yeah, it's not like you have to play him down the stretch with a guy that he's going to be playing with for the foreseeable future as well.
So, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm going to
Let's
here.
do it.
Do you think that the success of the Bulls going forward is predicated on what happens in the upcoming draft, where they fall and who they get?
Yeah, for sure. If the Bulls have to draft someone like Cam Reddish because they got the 5th or 6th pick, the draft will have been a failure. If they get themselves the 2nd or the 3rd pick and you've got R.J. Barrett, you've got Ja Morant, those are franchise-changing type of players. R.J. Barrett is going to be a much better pro than he is a college player, and he's a damn good college player. So, I think the Zion Williamson thing, I think the Knicks or, the Suns might be eyeing that guy.
Think they got the weighted lottery ball in there for one of them?
Yeah, the frozen envelope. I think Zion is going to be a Knick. Along with Kevin Durant, to be honest with you. So, yeah, but
they get Zion and KD and maybe another Max
It's going to be an
player.
issue. It's going to be an issue in New York. They'll finally, for 43 years, they've had nothing to really cheer for, so they'll finally have something to cheer for. But, yeah, this draft is huge for the Bulls. You can't mess this one up. And also, you got to make sure you got the right coach in place. Because if you draft a commodity that people want to come play with, first thing they're going to ask is about the coach.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Boylen. Let's go to football. At the age of 29 and almost a decade in the NFL, it is a sad day. Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski has announced his retirement. He goes out on top, having just won another Super Bowl ring. He now has 3. So, Gronk leaving. Where's he going? What do you think? He's going to TV? He's going to be a restaurateur? What do you think he's going to be doing?
Reality TV star, no doubt.
Yeah.
Whatever else he does with his time, there's definitely going to be a Gronk reality show. I'm confident of that. I don't see him going the wrestling route because if you're going to do that and put your body through it, even though it's scripted, I don't like to use the word fake. Those guys are still going through some stuff. So pro wrestling, I don't really see that in his future aside from maybe an appearance here or there. But definitely reality TV. And aside from that, public speaking, perhaps?
Yeah, something along those lines. Ryan Pace was named Executive of the Year by Sporting News. Guys, was this deserving?
Yeah. I mean, he hoodwinked the Raiders for Khalil Mack, who was one of the best edge rushers in the game and is on track to have a Hall of Fame career, and he's got him under contract going forward. the Mitchell Trubisky pick. You know, I mean, these are the things that build up to this. I understand the way that he put this defense together this year as well. I mean, he had the best year of any executive in the NFL, and that's from a guy who I questioned him the first 2 years, and there were questions to be asked.
You and all of us, yeah.
And he answered them, right? I mean, it's a great. You got the coach of the year. You got Khalil Mack. I mean, you deserve the credit.
Going in the right way. You think he's deserving of it as well?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Over the last 2 years, really, because to me, what the roster was 2 years ago was one of the worst in the National Football League, and in very quick fashion, he's reshaped it into one of the deepest in the National Football League, where we go into the offseason, you go into the draft, and you're wondering, what do the Bears really need? What are we worried about? Kicker, I guess. Aside from that, they've got depth and talent virtually at every position, and there's something to be said for that with what Ryan Pace has accomplished in reshaping this team in the manner he has.
When a fan base can chill during the draft, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is a beautiful thing. He was 4th worst in the NFL just 1 year ago. So one of the worst to the first.
Congrats.
Just kind of like the Bears. Congrats, Ryan Pace. All right, we'll be back to wrap things up right after the break. Welcome back. So Cubs and White Sox both open on the road. Any plans for opening day?
I'm not going to be at the game because, as you referenced, they're going to be on the road. But overall, I'm going to check them both out. Going to watch them. I'm not planning on hosting a big party or anything.
We're going to do our show, and then maybe we can go hang out and host a big party together.
Not at either of our homes, but perhaps we can step out somewhere.
I will be in Texas for Cubs Rangers, so I'll report back to see how that goes. Nice. All right, that's it. We're out of here. Our next news is tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. for those early risers. Inside the Bears is next. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good job.